Well, it's time for another review. However, this will not be one of the latest pieces of equipment to come out. This will be the DX-40. The DX-40 came out in the late 50s and early 60s, and it was my first transmitter. When it came out, it cost $64.95. And if you price that in today's market, you have to multiply that approximately by 8, which is about $480. So think of this. You can buy this DX-40, not the VF1, but just the DX-40 for $480. But we have a special on today. I'm willing to sell my DX-40 for $75. Think of that, $75. 1/8 the actual real cost that it should be. Well, the DX-40 is not quite the same as the Flex 5000 or the ICOM. Let's take a look at how it transmits. You might notice that the tone is not as clear as it could possibly be. Let's try that again. Not quite as clear as it could possibly be, but that adds a little bit of flavor to the signal. The key is not included. This is a key that my daughter, Samantha, bought when she was 8 years old. She got on the air as a ham radio operator at age 8. She got the Technician Plus, which goes to prove to you that it can't be that hard to pass the license if an 8-year-old child got on. But let's get back to the DX-40. The DX-40 has 75 watts of input, so this rig is very efficient. It uses a 6146 in the final. That's a tube for those of you that are not familiar with the older technology. My sister, Marion, enjoyed listening to me do this. She really enjoyed that. She'd be in her bedroom on the other side of the apartment trying to sleep, and she would hear just kind of helped her sleep a little bit. I made many contacts with the DX-40. It was really enjoyable. Then we have this other thing called the VF1. We're currently using the VF1. The VF1 has a very interesting characteristic to it. It can drift. You can take it and throw it into the ocean and it won't sink because it really does drift. And if I try it on a higher frequency, you'll see how it has a little bit of a different tone to it. So let's take a look at a higher frequency. I now have the DX-40 and the VF1 now on 15 meters, which is at 21 megahertz, which is much higher than the frequency we were on before. Before we were on 80 meters, which is around 3.7 megahertz. Now you're going to hear a little bit of a different sound when we key this up. So let's try it. That is the chicken effect. When you take a VFO of the quality of the Heathkit VF1 and you put it up at a high frequency, it sounds like a chicken. Bark, 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 bark. Let's try it again. That is fascinating, isn't it? We like to have a CW signal that changes in frequency when you key it. And you notice the tone is getting a little bit lower because as it warms up in the room, the VFO, that variable frequency oscillator, is drifting as well. This VFO is also for sale. I'd like to sell it for at least $60. Now, think about this. The VFO, when it first came out, the VF1 VFO sold for $19.95, and it was a kit. But this one's already put together. How about that? It's already put together, and you can get it. You know, if we take that $19.95, when we multiply it times 8, that's about $160. But you don't have to pay $160. You only have to pay about $60 to $70 is what I'd like to get for it. And I'm going to include the drifting and the chirping, that's what that's known as, drifting and chirping for free. Notice the frequency keeps going further and further down. Isn't that interesting? Really do enjoy that. This is a crystal, and it's very stable. It won't, unfortunately, you won't get that chirping sound when you use a crystal. This crystal, strangely enough, looks exactly like the crystal I used as a novice. This could be the same DX-40 that I owned in 1960. If I can confirm that in any way, I won't want to sell it. I would want to treasure it. I would love to keep it. Now with the DX-40, I am going to include the manual. It is not the original manual, as you can see, but I'm going to include the manual so you can see the schematic and how everything works. It can match an antenna. We're going to show you how to tune it up. It works on all bands, well, not 160, and it doesn't seem to work on the work bands too well, but it works on 80, 40, 20, 15, even 11 if you want to go there, and 10 meters. Now we're going to try something. We're going to tune it up, and tuning it up requires several different steps. First, you have to make sure you have about 3 mils of grid current. Well, we don't have quite 3 mils, but we have 2 mils of grid current, which is about as much as you're going to get on 15 meters. Then the next thing we do is we put it in the CW position, and we look for a dip in the plate current. The dip in the plate current allows the circuit to be resonant. When a circuit is resonant, it uses less current, and we're going to use this knob right here to get a dip. You don't have to do that with today's rigs, but doesn't that take a lot of the fun out of it? Now we have to flip this over to plate current, and we're going to try and dip it. You'll notice as we continue to tune up, the light will start to get brighter and brighter. And the first thing we're going to look for is a dip. Well, obviously there's no dip there because the needle goes all the way over. We're going to adjust it, and there we go. We got quite a dip there. So now we're down here, and now we use this control called the antenna tuning, and we bring it up somewhat. And we bring it up, and we dip it a little bit, and you notice the light's coming up a little bit, and we bring it up a little more, and we dip it a little more, and we bring it up a little more, and let's dip it a little more, and up we go. Look at how bright that's getting now. And we bring it up a little more. I hope I don't blow that bulb out with such enormous amounts of power. Okay, and now we're tuned up, and that's how you tune up the DX-40. Let's listen to it. Okay, I have now put a crystal in. The crystal is a 7 megahertz crystal, but you can triple it to get up to 15 meters. And you're going to hear when we're not using the VFO, in fact I'll turn it off. When we're not using the VFO, it has a little bit of a crisper sound. Let's listen to it now. Certainly sounds a lot clearer. So when you don't have the VFO in, the crystal makes it very, very stable. The higher in frequency you go with a VFO, the less stable it is. So you can kind of appreciate today's rigs. With today's rigs, you don't have that drifting and that chirping sound. I should also like to point out that the DX-40 has carrier control modulation. That means it modulates the screen grid, for those of you that are technical, and the power goes up and down as you speak. So while not speaking, your power may be 40 or 50 watts, and speaking it may get up to 60 watts. Now, since it's not plate modulated, it doesn't have that quality problem that regular AM transmitters have. You can always tell when you're listening to a DX-40 because it kind of has that muffled sound. I know when I was on the air for many years, hams would say, "You sound muffled." Now, isn't that an interesting thing that people can tell what rig you're using just by listening to you? So that's another feature that I've thrown in with this rig that you will be able to get for that low price. And then of course we have the 75 watt dummy load, which I'm sure you'd like to have that too, but I'm not going to include that. That 75 watt dummy load can be very expensive. Now some of the advantages of that 75 watt dummy load is it's kind of obvious how much power you're running. There isn't a meter on it, and you can't tell how much the SWR is, but it is a great dummy load. And if it breaks, you can always get another one. Every hardware store sells dummy loads, 75 watt sizes, 50 watt sizes, 100 watt sizes. I'm sure you can find them in almost every size imaginable. So that's it for the Heathkit DX-40 from K1OIK.